How much does it cost to sponsor a podcast episode? That's what we're going to cover in this video. So if you're new to podcast advertising, welcome to the channel. Hopefully you can find some really great insights here and in other videos that we have here as well. So make sure you poke around and see what's interesting to you to continue to learn. But first and foremost, what is podcast advertising? It's simply advertising a podcast, whether it's a video podcast, audio podcast, and that comes in different forms. You can either work with the creator directly, you can work with an ad network, you can work programmatically and buy at a category level and dynamically insert your ads. There's any number of ways to do it. And each of those implementations will affect how much you can expect to spend. So when we're talking about different ways to buy podcast ads, let's first break down the different buckets and then we'll give you the ranges, okay? So when you're working directly with a podcaster, you're typically either working on a host-read advertisement where the podcast host, the person running the podcast, reads the ad for you and then puts it inside their episodes, either dynamically or inserted into the content itself or baked in ads. The other way that you would do it is you would buy it dynamically inserted, where you run the promo yourself. You produce the promo, you execute it, and then you upload it to a system or a platform that inserts it at a category level, targeting like education podcasts or true crime podcasts or things like that. And then the third way would be working with a host network, a podcast ad network, where they have their own podcast hosts and they filter through and they run those ad campaigns for you. The CPM rate will depend on how engaged the audience is, what type of niche you're targeting, and how competitive that niche is. So if you're targeting business owners or entrepreneurs, because that's your customer demographic that you're trying to reach, those are probably gonna be more competitive ad rates, more expensive than if you're targeting consumer products or things like that, where there's a larger audience, more opportunities to reach those decision makers, and they don't have as much spending power as like a business owner, for instance. So you can expect to spend between $8 to $15 for a programmatic digital ad buy, where you're taking your advertising and dynamically inserting it inside of podcast content. If you're working directly with the creator for a host-read or dynamically inserted host-read ad, you'll typically start anywhere around $20 to $25, go all the way up to $60, $70, depending on the podcast, depending on the audience, and depending on the niche. So famously, Tim Ferriss has one of the highest advertising rates in the world because his audience trusts him, they respond to his ads, and he highly vets them. So before he even reads the ad, he knows it's going to work for the advertiser. And because of that, and because he has a long track record of success, he can command a higher CPM or a higher cost per 1,000 impressions. If you're working with a younger podcaster or one that is more generic, like a sports podcast, you'll typically see rates around $25, sometimes up to $30 per ad placement per 1,000 impressions, or $25 to $30 CPM. And that's pretty standard for working directly with a podcaster. Now, if you're interested in learning how much it costs to sponsor Joe Rogan's podcast, we have that and more tips and strategies on our blog. So you can go to audiencelift.com/blog to read the full blog post around podcast advertising rates, the current rates, the placements, all that kind of stuff. And we'll also leave a link directly to that blog in the video description below for your convenience to go and check out next.